Hello everyone! Today we're going to see the last episode of zoboomafoo. It was a kids show that appeared in, how do you say? Oh, that's right, the PBS kids show that appeared on the very first episode of zoboomafoo. Ever since kids had learned about nature. Well, anyway. The show begins where Martin and Chris, dressed like cowboys and astronauts like Woody and Buzz, they're from Toy Story in Disney. Anyway, they begin to have a fight about spaghetti and pizza. And they won't talk to each other until they apologize. Then zoboomafoo had come by. And, well, Martin had given him a cucumber. Then zoboomafoo had spot on circles, and he said, zoboomafoo! Then Martin and Chris are having a deep argument about their favorite colors, their favorite foods, and their adventures that they have went through. Then zoboomafoo said, "What's the matter, Chris and Martin?" Then Martin said, "Chris and I are having a decent argument." "I just feeling cracked out of the egg," Martin said. "Well, maybe this would have been better if you hadn't listened to me," Chris said. Then zoboomafoo said, "I finally figured out what's wrong." "What? That's wonderful, zoboomafoo." "Well, yes, that's wonderful, zoboomafoo," Martin said. "What is it?" "You two," said zoboomafoo. "What? I beg your pardon." "Excuse me, I beg your pardon." Then zoboomafoo said, "I think you two have accidentally hurting each other's feelings without realizing it." Martin? Yes, zoboomafoo? "Does it bother you that Chris never noticed that the wonderful spaghetti life that you put on for him? I mean, does it bother you that Chris never noticed that the wonderful spaghetti dinner that you prepare for him?" Yes, it does," said Martin, angry. Then he bounced over to Chris. "Chris," said zoboomafoo, "tell Martin how you feel that he never loved your pizza, and he never loved your pizza life and your pizza song that you do every night." Then Chris said, "Well, it's not the best feeling." Then Chris said, "I'm sorry, Martin, that I never noticed that you had made the spaghetti on the plate. But pizza life is long for me. You may be a spaghetti lover, but I'm half asleep." Then Martin said, "You think that I don't get tired? I'm exhausted. Well, accept my apology for not noticing that you made a pizza song and you made a pizza lunch that you do every morning." "Actually, I'm doing pizza every night," Chris said. "Whatever," said Martin. "Anyway, but the time I got retired for the night, I could barely see straight. Even so, I had the leverage to smile. Then Chris said, "Oh, like smiling is so hard." Then zoboomafoo said, "I'm sure that's not what Martin had meant to say." Then Chris said, yelling at Martin, said, "Is that what exhausts you? Smiling and being adored by every animal life?" Then Martin yelled at Chris even louder, "And you had so much worse, did you? You spent your life giving everybody Lappy Pizza Dreamy. Oh, that sounds just awful." Then zoboomafoo said, "That's enough, you two." Then Chris and Martin wouldn't listen to him. While they argued, zoboomafoo took over the show and teach kids about discipline, even when families argue sometimes. Then he got a message from Jackie that her mother had died because her father had no love life anymore. Then after the message, zoboomafoo went out to adventure all by himself, and he saw the most amazing creature, the flamingo. He explained that how flamingos that can stand on just one leg when they're sleeping, and stand on two legs to eat. Then after his adventure with all of his food and all of his stuff for the road, Martin had been not talking to Chris for over an hour. After he went on an adventure, he came back to the animal junction with all his stuff, that is food and clothes. Were Martin and Chris still arguing? Then Chris said, "I don't think I'll live in the animal junction. No, I think we should go back home," Martin had said. Then Chris was angry and said, "You're just acting like a jerk." "I am a jerk," Martin said. "You know what? Why don't you just get out and never come back?" said Chris. "Well, fine, because you're not my real brother anyway," Martin said as he leaves. Martin had slammed the door, and Zombu was shocked that Chris was covered in bruises. zoboomafoo had watched Chris as he cried in a corner. Then zoboomafoo said goodbye forever. This is the last episode of zoboomafoo. Then the credits have rolled in. I hope you like this video. Make sure you subscribe and to make sure how Chris and Martin are going to settle their differences between them. See you later!